The entire Dune series revolves around the Atreides family, and throughout their thousands of years of holding power, there's been one other house that caused the most trouble for them. Calling the Harkonnen family their rivals is too much of an understatement. The Harkonnens have always had a deep hatred for the Atreides, stemming back to when the Empire was first formed 10,000 years back. The two families are at each other's throats in the first book and film, and it wasn't much different back then. During one of the most notable battles in this story's lore, called the Battle of Corrin, one of the earliest known members of the Harkonnen family, named Abelard, deserted the space fight by fleeing with his ship at the early moments. An early Atreides family member reported the desertion, and Abelard was banished from the Empire. The repercussions were huge. House Harkonnen had wealth and power from their enterprises, but as a house in the Empire, it would take many generations to earn the trust of the other major houses, and the Emperor. House Atreides continued to speak against the Harkonnens from joining their ranks, because of how they treated the common people. It became Harkonnen tradition to be sadistic villains who practiced slavery and torture. But their wealth and power couldn't be denied, so eventually they became a prominent great house within the Empire, with the hopes of getting revenge on the Atreides. The Harkonnens have ancient origins to Finland back on Earth, though Earth is old news in this futuristic sci-fi series. This family doesn't connect 10,000 years of descendants. It's only really the more recent times that get explored. And even then, it isn't all that much. I know a bunch of fans of the newer release books, post the original author's death, are gonna say, hey, what about this Harkonnen? Or, that name doesn't sound familiar. Well, I'm only referencing the main series and the Dune encyclopedia written by the author's friend while he was still alive for this video. There's too many contradictions with the original author's sons in your books. Just too messy and things don't add up. The Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is the most iconic member of this family, being the major villain in the early story. The title Baron is just a nobility rank. It's through him that long-dead Abelard's revenge gets carried out. Before going all in on the Baron, there is mention of his grandfather, so that's where this family tree will kick off. Granach Harkonnen closely resemble the Baron we know and hate, in appearance and in nature. Dr. Willis McNally writes in the Dune Encyclopedia that Granach was heinous enough to have all his sons except one killed to prevent any schemes for succession. He wanted to die a peaceful death without fear of assassination. At a certain age, a nervous disease left him bedridden, but his paranoia still persisted, so he had surroundings protected in case of an attack. The Harkonnens' homeworld, where they ruled over, was the dreary planet Gedi Prime, after the whole exile situation. And it's in the castle here that Granach would succumb to his nervous disease. Rule over Gedi Prime would pass on to the only son he let live, Gunsang Harkonnen, and there's a little more info written on this character. He lived about 100 years before the main Dune series begins. The family drama only gets wilder during this Harkonnen era. His wife, Mortana Sorabella, had the nickname of the Black Widow, so that should say enough about her. It was a marriage to align both powerful houses, and there was no love between them. But the Harkonnen line needed to continue, so 3 children would come from this couple. The firstborn son is unnamed, probably due to the fact that he died in infancy. The secondborn son, named Eraskin, was born with physical and mental disabilities. Eraskin was pretty massive though. He was 2 meters tall, that's over 6.5 feet. Eraskin would grow to be a ferocious man with a bad temperament, the only good characteristic named being his devotion to his mother. Gunsang never acknowledged Eraskin as his son, though he never denied it publicly. Gunsang let his wife, Mortana, do all the raising with this son that he had no use for, while focusing his efforts on his preferred son, Vladimir. During this loveless marriage, Gunsang had a 4th child with a different woman, his concubine named Ganella Sarvag. They would name their son Abelard, not the most celebrated name considering how looked down upon the early ancestor was. While younger brother Vladimir was being groomed to rule ahead of his older brother Eraskin, their mother was poisoning the poor fella's head. She told Eraskin all his birth defects are due to Gunsang's genetics, creating the perfect storm. At a state banquet, Eraskin murdered his father and attacked Vladimir, nearly killing him, before being rescued by someone with a poison needle. Vladimir instantly became the family's successor, with his older brother and father now gone. The new Baron Vladimir recognized this had his mother's fingerprints all over it, so strangled her to death himself that same night. A crazy start to a terrible rule. The citizens of Gedi Prime suffered under him. Abelard had no intent in getting in his half-brother's way, so decided to renounce the Harkonnen last name and all potential titles. With his concubine, Thora Rabban, Abelard would have 2 children, Glossu Rabban and the younger Feyd-Rautha. This is kinda where the family tree ends. Despite being the head of the family, Vladimir never married or even had a concubine by his side. With all the hints dropped by Frank Herbert, it's pretty clear he had a preference for younger boys. Way too young. Yeah, he's that type of villain. But he was willing to sleep with a woman on at least one occasion. Heavy spoilers from here on out. Not sure why this huge plot twist wasn't included in the first part of the Dune movie, but Vladimir is the confirmed father of Paul's mother, Jessica. More crazy family drama. The mother was Thénardier Nuras, a reverend mother within the Bene Gesserit, sent to the Baron with the sole purpose of having a daughter with him, ensuring his useful DNA belonged to their organization. The Reverend Mother Thénardier had a difficult time accomplishing this goal because of his sexuality. But after she was eventually successful, it wouldn't be long before she fled the Baron, to never be seen by him again. Their short relationship was noted to be stormy, and it's likely her life, as well as unborn Jessica, could have been at risk at any given moment. It didn't take much to feel Vladimir's wrath. Jessica wouldn't get the chance to be raised with either parent, because that's just how the Bene Gesserit handles their emotionless training so they can control the universe. With the existence of his daughter Jessica being unknown to Vladimir, he looked towards his half-brother's sons, Rabban and Feyd-Rautha. Both are awful, like you'd expect from House Harkonnen. Glossu Rabban just happened to be a little dumber than the rest of the family. What he lacked in wits, he tried to make up for with brawn. Out of the two nephews, Vladimir favored the younger Feyd-Rautha to be his successor, while he's being prepared for rule on Gedi Prime. Glossu Rabban was given control over the planet Arrakis, aka Dune. Rabban's brutality over the native people earned him the nickname of the Beast. Vladimir's grand scheme was to have Feyd replace him as ruler of Dune after years of Rabban's misrule. This would make Feyd look like their savior from a tyrant. Vladimir was grossly overweight by this point in the story and lost all his good looks and combat skills. Instead of just waiting for his eventual death, Feyd's impatience gets the better of him. His confidence made him believe he could take out his uncle and have the seat of power before his time. He tried to poison his uncle by using one of his child slaves, but failed. Vladimir spared his nephew for treason, deciding to punish him by making Feyd personally kill all his female slaves. More Harkonnen sadistic behavior.
I've never met Harkonnens before. They're not human, they're brutal.
If you've read up until the end of the first book, you know how this family tree ends. With the second part of the movie still so far from filming, I'd rather not spoil the entire thing for movie viewers. There's one other prominent family that I should probably do one of these videos for. Was the Emperor's name even mentioned in the movie? Anyways, that's coming soon. 2023, I swear.